Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the regular monthly board meeting of the Lake City Development Corporation. It is December 18th. Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Justin, can you lead us in that?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. First regular order of business then is public comment. So do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board at this point on an item of interest? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go right into approval of our minutes from the November 20th board meeting. Had a chance to review those minutes, and do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular monthly board meeting of the December 20th, 2013 meeting. Are there any corrections, comments, or questions? Did I say December? I meant November. November. Any corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the first presentation, we have a number of presentations tonight, so we appreciate everybody's patience and thanks for coming. First one is a project known as the Circuit at Celtice. Proponent is Dennis Cunningham. So you folks are welcome, and I think you're represented by Sandy.
Yes.
Young. So I don't know if you need to come to the table or the podium, Sandy, whatever's comfortable for you.
Okay. Well, I can come to the table because then I won't be speaking to one side of the table's backs, but I'm just going to pull up an exhibit.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. For the record, my name is Sandy Young, and I'm a land use planner with Verdis. We're a landscape architecture land use planning business in downtown Coeur d'Alene, and I'm here tonight representing Active West Builders and Active West Development, Dennis and Sharon Cunningham, and the name of our project is the Circuit at Celtice. And the subject parcel is denoted up there just left of the white dot. So it's one parcel to the east of the intersection of Atlas and Celtice. And I do have a layout that I'll show you
Right there, Sandy.
of the proposal, yes. In fact, I'm going to pull that up next, and then we can get on the sewer. Thanks, Tony. In the application packet that you have before you, it shows as a 38-lot proposed urban infill subdivision for single-family homes, but we've increased that to 39 lots. So we've added an extra lot down in the southeast corner. So as you're coming in off of Celtice on the east, it's just a horseshoe-shaped entry. But you'll notice at the top where we're showing with the green hatched area, that little 20-foot wide common driveway connector, that's to discourage looped access so that if you're living on the west side of the development, you'll come in and take an immediate left and head to those lots that are on the left versus if you're living on the right or the east side of the property. Homes are proposed to be about 1,000 to 1,600 square feet. It is similar to the Meadow Ranch development, which Active West Development and Builders also develop. So if you're familiar with that at all, that's the development with the big red barn that sits just next to Fred Meyer up on the hill. So this, I won't say will be exactly similar in style, but the development itself, again, urban infill, small lots with homes that comprise a good portion of the lot for livability. We will be submitting an application packet to the City of Coeur d'Alene for a planned unit development as well as a subdivision within about a week. The goal is to have approval in the spring, breaking ground with a first model home for a parade of homes in August of 2014. We're here tonight before you to ask for your assistance in extending the sewer line, to which there is none right now along the north side of Celtice. And Gary's going to pull up that first exhibit that I had for you, which depicts the sewer line. So we would be starting at actually it's the two parcels, and Gary, if you wouldn't mind running the cursor over, you see that parcel that we're showing there, and then the parcel to the east of it. Both of those are the subject site. That building will be torn down on that skinnier parcel that sits to the east. And there is no sewer there, so sewer will start at the southeast corner of the site, and the blue line denotes the proposed 8-inch sanitary sewer that's going to run to the black dot, which is at the corner of the parcel that has the new apartments on it, and they have sewer line there, so the two will join. It's about 2,800 feet of sewer line, and it will continue on then to the lift station on Grand Mill, and then the red denotes the pressure sewer line, which brings it back to the wastewater treatment plant. The blue line, the installation portion that Active West hopes to be installing, will serve 14 other parcels besides their site. So 10 of those parcels are in the city, and 4 of those are in the county. And so those sites will be brought online as they develop. We'll be able to hook right into the 8-inch line. And also, it's a requirement by the city that each of those, that we as developers stub out to each of those parcels so they're ready to be served when they're ready to be developed. Gary's pulling up a map that shows you the city limits. So everything highlighted in the green are city parcels, and then what's left in just the aerial photo are the 4 county parcels I was referring to. And basically the 10 lots are just adjacent to this property on the other side of Atlas. That parcel's broken up into, that larger parcel's broken up into a significant amount of smaller parcels.
I'm curious, Sandy, your access points would be right turn in, right turn out?
Yes. And
Across.
right turn in, right turn out, and it'll be just the one main entrance. The ingress and egress you saw to the left will be for emergency purposes only. There'll be grasscrete in that area rather than pavement. The fire district has approved, or city fire district has approved it. We've been through several project review meetings with the city, and we've got the thumbs up right now with this design and with the improvements we're making. Along Celtice, there'll be acceleration and deacceleration lanes. We're just putting those in today on the drawing. We met with the engineers a day before yesterday, and so we haven't had a chance to update this yet, or I would have shown that on this site plan. But acceleration and deacceleration. But yes, Deanna, right in, right out. So that the approximately $370,000 that we're requesting that the LCD assist with will not only facilitate this development, but the 14 properties that lie to the west of this site. And of course, as they develop, that adds additional increment to the district. And then Gary, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the LCDC district boundaries, you'll see that those parcels are where the district boundaries are, which I'm certain you're all familiar with, but it's always good to see. And I just sit for questions if you have any, but I think my narrative kind of explained it in a nutshell, and I'm not going to read through it.
Okay, questions for Sandy? Dave?
Sandy, thank you. The 14 parcels that basically are going to be served by this gravity sewer that the Cunninghams are being required to put in, is there any caveat or provision in your proposed agreement with the city where as people hook, they'll be reimbursing you partially for their costs to do that?
We asked for that. We asked if latecomer fees could be a consideration, but the city was not interested in that.
Imagine that. John?
I think most of the reasoning, Dave, and John can certainly jump in here if he'd like, but I think most of the reasoning has to do with the administration of it and somebody
okay.
keeping track of it and then making sure it's
Like 14 separate time clocks going and all that stuff.
exactly,
yeah.
and then you're tracking building permits, and logistically that becomes difficult. We've experienced those same remarks, not just from the city of Coeur d'Alene, but other cities as well as sewer and water districts.
And for the public's information, what is the ask for that blue line that's depicted there? What's the cost of that?
It's $371,000.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you could just break down that just generally, what that's paying for. Is it all just in the sewer line?
There was a portion of it that is to remove that blighted building that's on the site.
Stub outs probably approaches.
And stub outs, yes, of course, right. So it's construction of and extension of.
Did you mention in our, I might have dreamt this up, did you mention in our committee meeting about connecting with the Centennial Trail up on the north end?
Yes, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. This site will connect to the Centennial Trail up in the northeast corner, and we're working with ITD right now to gain access to the Centennial Trail so that residents of this development will be able to easily access. We do plan for this to be a gated subdivision plan unit development, and we've been working with city engineering to ensure that we'll be able to accomplish that and, in a manner that meets their requirements. So, and the gated, the rationale for the gated is that seems to be what a lot of single people want in an urban infill development, just for security reasons. A lot of times they're gone, whether it's in the winter months and there's snowbirds and living here, or it's just demographically a lot of single women are looking for places like this, and that seems to be what they're looking for in a development like this for security.
Sandy, are you being required to put sidewalk or any of that sort of thing along that north side of Saltese? That
We are.
Property.
I don't know that they required it, but we did offer it. And
Okay.
so, yes.
And then for the increment math that goes on here, what is your proposed or your estimate on the value of your project at build-out compared to what is its value today, so we can kind of do the math with the increment to see how long it would take to get the 371 back?
The estimated dollar increase in property value is $6.4 million.
Okay.
Currently, the property is assessed at $536,000.
So it's roughly a $6 million increment.
Yes.
Okay.
And just for the public's, this would be an improvement reimbursement agreement situation, so the developer would put the initial cost of installing that line and get reimbursed over a period of years from that increment tax revenue.
And I will mention that as part of Exhibit A to the application, and I know you've seen this, but the public hasn't heard this, is that we did some simple math with it, and this request is about a 58% of the 10-year return for the dollars spent. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Just a quick question. On the east side of where you're showing the sewer going to the east, how much of a gap will that leave between the end of the sewer and where the sewer ends coming west on Saltese now? Do we have an idea? So you're looking at the eastern point there.
Right. Dennis may know the answer to that. I can't remember if it's adjacent there. I do know that the break is there, so
Gordon's
that the
probably
grade.
got it.
If I might,
Hi, Gordon.
Gordon, welcome.
that completes the sewer. It connects to the existing terminus on the west end, and that's as far as the gravity sewer will go.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure if that was the case. That's what I wanted to find out. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've got a quick question, and Gordon, jump in if you want. But rather than having, we've already got sewer on one side of the road, rather than having boring under the street or whatever, you envision sewer on each side of the road out there the whole way out, or what do you envision?
No, the master plan is, this gravity line serves everything on the north side, and the existing, there's an existing main that will be extended from the east off the end of that cul-de-sac that will serve the property south because of the grades. So the property grades, as you might remember, Celtice is the high point.
Right.
So everything to the north is caught in this line they're proposing. Everything south of Celtice grades down to the river and will be caught in a future line that will be closer to the river.
Well, what's the red line I see up there?
It's a red line.
Okay.
I
Isn't
believe,
that an existing pressurized line?
Oh, that's the existing pressurized line that will go away when and if there's a sewer siphon that's built, and that siphon, it's complicated, let's try it. So
Okay.
that pressure main goes away, and that, instead of pumping to the existing outfall, which is a manhole off the right side of the page, which we can't see, it will pump up to future headworks that are up closer to the freeway, up in the upper left-hand corner that we can't see, and then it will gravity by force of, a head, that will gravity all the way out to that outfall that we can't see. So it's being pressured now, but it'll pump it uphill and then let it gravity flow back down.
Okay, so this all fits in with what you ultimately want to see out there.
Correct. They're following the master plan for the sewer in this area.
Then we'll have stubs on each property out there.
To the north, correct.
This all
Again,
fits in.
yeah, to the
Okay.
south will drain down to the future line towards the river.
All right. Thanks.
Other questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, this is classic urban renewal that, we need the utilities there. That the piece of land where the subdivision is going in has always been an underutilized piece of land as far back as I can remember, and it's getting to where I can remember pretty far back anymore as the years have gone by. Have we done any modeling as to, how this fits in? We've got a lot of big commitments starting to come up in the river district. Is that, if we approve of this, how, would that be part of it to figure
I'll
how
leave
the
the
modeling
ultimate
fits
question
in
to
with the
Tony.
return and so
But
forth?
this is creating new increment. So
Correct.
the
Correct.
new increment that's
Correct.
created by this project will pay for the money we're
Correct.
spending. So it shouldn't impact.
Wondering
for
if you
other
figured out what the payback was on it and so
Yeah, we
forth.
figured out.
I think this is great. I'm just asking how this
Good
fits
question.
in what the return and payback time is.
Yeah, this is a self-funding project. This has not been involved in any of our economic modeling, so it has no impact to our other
Okay.
commitments. My understanding is that if this sewer doesn't go in, these projects won't happen, so it's
Right.
one of these chicken and egg things, so that's why it's not even in our modeling system at this time. So the project will pay for the construction of this new sewer line, and then hopefully these other parcels will kick in and add future increment to it.
Right, okay.
Deanna?
so are you asking for is this just as merely listed as a presentation? Are we looking for a decision point tonight, or?
Your choice. So you
So-
could take it under advisement, or
So you could make a motion to approve the
We
project,
could
move
approve
forward
it
with the
tonight.
negotiations. So that would be my motion, sir.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the request. Is there any discussion?
Is there any conditions or anything we want to put on this? Any suggestions?
Brad, I
as to-
said as part of the motion to
Okay.
work out the agreement.
Yeah. So Tony, you have
So that process
The
would-
standard
Is that in
process
there?
would be
Okay.
that you would direct me, working with our legal counsel, to go ahead and develop the improvement reimbursement agreement and work to perform a cost validation analysis on the public improvements to make sure that they do come in under $371,000. That would be the maximum commitment, and we would work forward on that and bring this issue back to you for final approval once that cost validation is complete.
That
Okay,
was my
so that was all
motion.
that was all the things you had in
In
there.
much
All
less,
right.
fewer words.
That was my second.
okay.
I didn't
so-
catch all those things, so that's good. You had all those things in there. But I think this is a great project. It's classic urban renewal.
Al?
The agreement then would come back after the city has completed its review of the project and made its approvals?
The
The way that it would work is that the cost validation would follow the installation and approval and acceptance by the city, and then we would incorporate that in the improvement reimbursement agreement and start the process.
So in effect, the approval is conditioned upon a successfully negotiated IRA.
Correct.
Improvement reimbursement agreement, approval by the city, actual construction, and then cost validation of the expenses as incurred.
Correct.
Makes sense to everybody? Great. Other questions? Any other comment? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sandy.
Thanks, good luck.
Look forward to seeing you when you get a little further down the road. Okay, the next item is a presentation on the city's downtown sidewalk initiative, and Deputy Administrator John Ingalls is here for, I take it, the last time, John.
Thank you, Chairman
Welcome.
Davis, Commissioners. Your Executive Director, Tony Burns, Terry Cooper of the Downtown Association, and city staff have been working for the last few months on a partnership plan, kind of a concept of operations, if you will, to repair some pretty deteriorated downtown sidewalks. So we are here tonight to seek your approval for this participation plan. You know, the city of Coeur d'Alene is blessed to have a great downtown. You know that. You've had a big hand in shaping that. But as you know, the sidewalks are in pretty tough shape. So we've put together a plan. I'll get to some numbers in a minute that, if the city participates in the repair along with some support from LCDC and the Downtown Association, we want to take care of business and just do it and make it start happening next summer. So the decision point, again, we're here to seek your support. Let me go back and talk about our ADA program just a little bit. You've probably seen this in the paper. You're a little bit familiar with this. Councilman Hassel, Councilman Goodlander have had a hand in shaping this. Looking around town, it's been very successful. There's a list of streets there that we've gone out and made them far more travelable for everyone, mainly folks that use the sidewalks. Why downtown? They're in tough shape. And the ADA Act, Americans with Disabilities, says, focus or triage on where people are, where people want to go, where the civic functions are and that sort of thing. And they're in tough condition. They pose some hazards, and we have some people falling down and lawsuits and such. So we've got a crew that Tim Martin, street superintendent's put together that is doing some great work around town. Been at this since 2007. They've learned really well on how to kind of tweak and cheat the variables just a little bit to make these things work. As you can see here, they know how to deal with tough obstacles. No tree is too tough for them to deal with. They're a great crew. And downtown, I would say, and we talked with the council about this a lot, this is a 2-year program that we're looking for approval for. City Council has approved it. Downtown Association Board has approved it. And we're asking for you to take a look at it and see if you would approve it as well. Notionally, a two-year commitment. The city would commit its time and effort and its in-house crew. The vast majority of this work is going to be labor. And that's where Tim Martin comes in. And I'd say here, while the record and the TV is on, we're going to learn as we go on this a little bit. It's going to be some tough sledding. Is it exactly 2 years? We don't know. But we think we have it estimated pretty well. And the city will take the risk if it takes a little bit longer to do it than we have estimated. Experience with routes. So let me get to the basics here. It's downtown core. Basically, 1st Street to 7th Street is the majority of it, maybe just a little bit outside that box. And then some of these cross streets from basically Lakeside to about the alley point south of Sherman, with McEwen fixing some of the stuff south of that alley point. Some trees are just going to have to go away. It's just too narrow. We'll keep the pavers. A few trees will go away. These corners are not ADA compliant. They lack these things called truncated domes, the warning strips, and some of this brick will probably have to go away. They just don't meet standards right now, and in some cases they're in tough conditions. I'll show you the numbers here in a minute, but the component that we're asking for Lake City Development Corporation participation is the cost that would be apportioned to the cost to repair the corners. Granted, it'll be city labor, but the cost to do the material and the truncated domes and deal with some of the interferences, that's what we're here to request your support for. Downtown Association is going to help more with the trees, and the city with some materials and a whole lot of labor. Some of the trip hazards are evident. You've seen a lot of these yourself. I go through this pretty quickly. There is some. You can see there's been some successes. This is doable. You can see where folks have pulled it off, and if we had a concerted and coordinated effort, we can make it all safe and travelable. Pretty tough shape. Again, some trees will probably have to go away completely. There's just not the width there. In other cases, the trees can be saved, and there's plenty of sidewalk width to have enough room for ADA minimums. Here's another example of a tree that's just straight in the middle of the sidewalk, and there's just no way you could get the ADA passage on either side. This one probably has to go away. Another example where you can see a pilot project that Mr. Cooper piloted that, again, demonstrates this is a doable do. These pavers can be shored up and squared up, a little bit of new concrete, a few trees go away, a few trees get changed out, and it's very doable. Kind of the punchline slide. The estimate to do that whole work would be about $400K, about 2 years to complete. The city would put in the value of $300K, which is a commitment of our ADA program for 2 years at 75%. That allows us a little bit of capacity because we want to keep a little bit in reserve because we're supposed to also be able to jump on emergent pop-up problems here or there, maybe at a school or something, to be able to do some other work at the same time. But that would be a commitment of 2 years' worth of our program, asking LCDC to support this effort commensurate with the value of the corners at $70,000 spread over 2 years. And the Downtown Association, their part was estimated at supporting the cost estimate for the tree work, valued at $30,000 over 2 years. So I think that is it. We're confident in this in-house crew. We think this is a good way to do it. There's going to be this is a demanding project with a lot of hand and glove treatment that you're going to have to, each business owner, we're going to have to kind of do some hand holding and a lot of coordination. And we've got a lot of trust in this crew. They've done some great things. We think this is the way to go. So, with that, any questions?
Questions of John?
I have a question,
Brad?
Mr. Chairman. Okay, John, obviously something needs to be done down there. This city's grown a whole lot in the last couple decades since the downtown revitalization project was done down there. And I'm not sure how many people remember a downtown with no trees. but it was before these revitalization projects were done down there, and it would be just a stark contrast to what it is now. Those trees really help make the downtown. So, do we have the trees that are going to come out pinpointed? How many trees would there be? I understand some trees have to come out. I'm in favor of doing this, but I think this needs to be pinned down a little bit tighter on what trees are coming out where, and also something as far as this needs to be done with the understanding of keeping the, I guess for lack of a better term, the architectural integrity of the design of the sidewalks and so forth. Obviously, there'll have to be a little changes, as you said, to meet the current ADA. Those were done to meet ADA 20 years ago, but it's a little bit different now. So that's a couple of things. Blending that in to match the integrity, and then really minimizing the trees that have to come out. And maybe if one has to come out, a new one can be planted closer to the side of the sidewalk where it would meet ADA. So that's two important things to me, I think.
So I'll take a swing at that.
Okay.
So as we were working an approach to try to do this in a more hardened compliance perspective, sending letters to abutting property owners and demanding that this get done, and it wasn't very successful. Engineering department went block by block, property by property, and did that survey. The number of tree removals are very small, where a tree would just go away and not come back. I showed you a couple of examples where
Right.
it's just really almost a practical impossibility. I believe those are almost a handful or so, very small, Brad. Wherein we don't know. I don't have a map that's going to show you exactly beyond that which of the trees that are mature can be saved. That's some of that. We got to do this on trust. And if we were going to contract this out, we'd spend $50,000, $60,000 or something like that to hire an engineering firm to give bid specs with a set of drawings a 1/4 inch thick and whatnot. We're not going to do that. We haven't done that in the past. We've had good results at working block by block, property by property, with the pledge and promise that if we remove one of those mature trees, the next best tree that we can get you, we're going to put back. And here's an example. This was a tree that was, 6-8 inches diameter that came back with a 4-inch tree, So very few trees are going to go away. We are going to stay with the design theme and the bricks, but some of them will, have to go away a little bit. And in that, I use the corner example. We're probably going to square this up a little bit here, where potentially, say, some of this might go away in order to make this one big pour, in order to keep and maintain ADA integrity. And I see Gordon nodding his head, and we've had a lot of conversations in that regard. But he's coming on up here.
If I might, this is a great picture because what the pavers are doing to us are creating constant tripping hazards. Look at that edge right there. We continually deal with these where the pavers settle and you've got a lip that's greater than a 1/2 inch. So really the long-term solution is where you've got these potential tripping hazards around the ped ramps is to go with just concrete so we don't have to continually address them.
Right. So what would you do then? Cut it to the corners and leave the pavers kind of where the corner is there, and then kind of like right to there?
We would probably come somewhere in here, and eliminate the pavers from somewhere in here. Maybe go to the tree grate. You have to get out there and physically see. You don't want to leave a few inches of pavers. So maybe catch it at the tree grate and then come around to the same spot, perhaps over here. Come off the tree grates on both sides.
Well, and I think your crew's done some great work. I've seen some things that they've done up in the older parts of town where there's some humongous trees up there they've had to cut around. The good thing is with deciduous trees like in the downtown, they can take some beating up and cutting on the roots and they'll still survive. So, and I saw the demonstration a year or two ago at the Iron Horse that you're referring to there. So I just think there needs to be a meeting of the minds. Obviously, we don't have architectural drawings exactly where that's going to get cut, so I'm not asking for that. I'm looking for a meeting of the minds so we're all going in the same direction on what we're trying to accomplish there with the pavers and the architectural look. And I guess the other thing is there's probably been some kind of a survey done on which trees, And obviously, some big trees, when you get into it, you got to see what's going on with the roots, but I'm just trying to pin this down a little closer, so there's a meeting of the minds, and somewhere we start really getting into this thing, and all of a sudden, a lot of more trees are coming out than people think. So I'm not trying to beat this to death. I just think we need to, I support this, and I think it makes sense to do this for the downtown, because the downtown is an extremely high-density, high-value area, and it subsidizes the other parts of the city. So I think it's important to protect the downtown because it's a revenue generator. And, East Sherman is an example of a project done without trees. People don't even know East Sherman was revitalized years ago because it doesn't even look like it. So I just think these trees are really important to the look of the downtown and the character of the downtown. That's why we just need to have some kind of a meeting of the minds on what we're doing here, so it doesn't start to get to be too convenient to start cutting a lot of these trees out. They don't have to be.
Good
Thanks for
comment.
letting me get
No
on my
tree is
soapbox
going,
about
no
that.
mature tree is going to come out, except, there's a couple no-brainers. I showed you a couple examples. One on, 6th Street just south of Sherman, it's right in the middle.
Obviously.
That's that handful I'm talking about. Beyond that, all of these other ones are not going to go away. We're going to go block by block, and if we can save it, it'll be Gordon coming out there talking with Tim, with our urban forester. Every effort will be made to save every single one of these.
I think, Brad, you need to understand that the city's gone through these tree processes. We've had to remove some because they were getting too large. But I think we can trust the city to just do the job. You're talking about a meeting of the minds. Who are you referring to? Who's going to meet the minds? I mean, we've got staff, we've got our urban forester, we've got the people that are in line that have done this, that know what they're doing. The plan is never to take out trees unless they're replaced with another tree, unless they are just untenable. And some of these, as you could see by this picture, are untenable. So I think that we should be pretty comfortable in trusting that the city knows what it's doing here and that they can move forward.
Yeah, I understand that, Deanna, and I think if nothing else, this conversation we're having is putting everyone on the record talking about what the goal is and what the intent of this is. It's going to be hard to exactly have exact drawings of this thing, so we have to just understand that we're all going the same direction. So I think based on what's being said on the record here, we're kind of memorializing a meeting of the minds or a common goal as to what we're doing downtown there.
Good comments, Dave.
My concerns on this whole thing, and John or Gordon can probably answer this, I don't know what percentage of the downtown improvements this is covering. I assume it's a large percentage of the streetscape that Brad talks about that was improved, what was it, back in the 80s, Brad?
I think it was around 80, 89 and 92 on Lakeside, yeah.
Yeah, 25 years ago. So this is a result of a couple of things. It's a result of tree roots and the paver situation. I don't see too much where the concrete's at fault as part of the original design, but it's a defensive reaction to 25 years of growth, of living with this. Mm-hmm. My concern is that 10 years from now, we've got more tree root growth and we're doing the same thing again. Federal funding is allowing for the lion's share of this to occur. If that goes away, there's going to be other issues. Is this particular project, John, over the next 2 years going to address the lion's share of the problems today in the downtown core, or is it just like phase one of 2 or 3 phases that it's going to actually take to respond to this concrete upheaval that's going on down there?
Since we are kind of memorializing some mutual understanding, I would emphasize again, as I did with council, that, your participation would be fixed, but the city's, as Tim knows, whether this is precisely 2 years or not, it might vary a little bit. So that's good for the record. But when we're done after that nominal 2-year period, we think we're going to be good for quite a while. Then we're not going to be back phase 2 for a couple more years. And yes, the trees are part of that, and for sure that's a big part of getting this under control. But I was trying to go back to my little corner slide, if I can find it, there. and point out that part of this isn't for condition, part of this is for compliance. And, if I would think if I was in a wheelchair right now, I could probably navigate this, but it's not in compliance. It doesn't meet the current slopes and standards and truncated domes and all that. So I've really harped on the deterioration, but there is a lack of compliance issue as well. And this, after we're done, would make downtown really good for a long time.
Okay.
Deanna?
Also, David, it's not federal funding. The $300,000 is coming from the funds that we have put in place to do this work. So it's city funding. And it's not federal money. So the city is funding the primary portion of this, and we're actually taking 2 years' worth of work that we would be doing around the city and focusing particularly in the downtown area, with the exception of leaving some aside for potential future, as John mentioned, emergencies or something we have to deal with. So this is coming from the street funding for sidewalk repair, and of course LCDC participation needs to be a major component of that. The people that own those sidewalks, or we own the sidewalks, with the people who ordinarily would be responsible, or the downtown business owners, they paid for the original LID, and Brad was part of that. Back in the day, they paid the entire process. It wasn't funded by the city. It was funded through one of the largest LID that had ever been passed. Those people voted to tax themselves to fix this downtown and make it what it is today. And I think that's why Brad's very protective of it, because he was a real big part of that at that time. So this process is going forward to repair and upgrade what we have in place and what they paid for.
Well, I don't know where I got the federal funding. Maybe it was the ADA, and I leaped to that conclusion, but okay. Again, and the other part of it is that, and Deanna, I don't know if you're the answer to this, or John, is the city basically telling its residents you don't have to repair your sidewalks anymore? Okay, how do we legally?
There's been a lot of
how do we
discussion
legally
on that.
balance
John, you
this
want to
thing?
tackle that one?
I'll take a shot at it, but the ADA abatement program that the council has created, with a lot of input from our legal department, we have very deliberately not changed the ordinance that basically says, like most cities say, that the abutting property owner has the responsibility. However, we start working our way around. As I mentioned to the chairman, it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. We're going to work our way around the whole city. And if you, Brad, live at 123 Foster, and you got a heaved up sidewalk, and you want to gamble and see, if you can kind of live with that heaved up sidewalk, until we get there, you can do that. In a lot of the residential areas, you have the opportunity to participate in an incentive program where we would help fund your repairs. And so this is kind of a safety net kind of deal. We're going to try to paint our way all the way around the town, if you will, but at the end of the day, it's the budding property owner's responsibility.
Sure, and I think what the city's doing is right, and I think several years ago when you developed this program, it was a wise thing to do. And it's hard to go to a property owner that's already struggling to pay their bills and pay their property taxes and everything else and say, you're in violation, so you've got a $2,000 bill to fix your sidewalk up right now. So people just don't have the wherewithal to do that. So I think this is a good system that the city has where they're going around and doing
Commercial
this.
is a little bit tougher. Again, when we're just talking about the residential areas, again, a lot of houses in downtown are 60-foot frontage, and it may cost you $1,200–1,500, and we can match you up to $500 to help you with that, and it's working out pretty well.
Nick?
It's inevitable that the trees' roots are going to pop up, and concrete's going to get busted out, or the pavers are going to get moved. And we are starting to see a lot of commercial areas with trees. I mean, Lakeside, Sherman, Front's going to have them. Is there any contemplation of having a reserve account so that we're not always having to come back? I mean, should the Downtown Association or should the city start to be reserving on an annual basis to alleviate these as they come along? Because tree roots will continue to surface.
I see Troy sitting back there.
Mr. Tymeson, you're invited up there.
While he's walking up there, you know, I'll try to be the finance guy and the engineer. I do a lot of occupations that I don't have credentials for. But at any rate, the Downtown Association, they have a maintenance agreement with the city that says that they're going to deal with trees, and that's kind of why we have costed out their participation sort of commensurate with the value of the trees. But really, how do we get ahead of this and prevent it from recurrence? That's the engineering piece of it. And at Midtown, there's a whole different, you know, tree selection. One, that's the forester part of it, but there's a whole different, it looks like a culvert pipe kind of in the ground, and a whole different engineering detail. Trees, what do they seek, the air, or do they seek, these roots, they really like air and whatnot. And we believe that, you know, we can engineer our way to a little bit better places.
Will that be done when you replace the trees now?
For the ones that truly get completely yanked out. That example down at the Iron Horse that we showed you, that was a total rip out. I think the detail of the tree well replacement there. But in some cases, you know, that one's one that kind of goes away. There's some trees, you know, like this one, you know, we may work with the roots and whatnot, but that we're not likely to rip this whole tree well out in this case.
Right. So it is a kind of cutting-edge technology, and what they used on Sherman is not what we used on Front Street or on 4th, and we use something completely different on Front. So we're always looking for what's the latest thought. These, where we end up removing trees altogether, we will look at either the system we used on Front, or there's even systems that have developed since then that look to be more compatible, that excavate the area and replace it with material that's more porous, that allows, you know, water and air to get in and accommodates the roots rather than confining them. So where they're removed, in fact, I just had a conversation with Bill Greenwood. Look, he showed me some stuff on the web that is different even from that you can pour sidewalk on top of. So the goal is to say, yeah, let's use the latest and greatest to prevent this to the extent we can.
Okay, so if I can bring us to some focus, we have a long agenda, so unless there's a really serious question that hasn't been asked before, or if, John, if you have anything else to tell us. Tony, is this I assume this is like the last year, we could approve this or we can put it off?
Yes, sir, but I think the city would strongly
Like an
be
approval.
desirable for us to approve.
Okay. So it's up to the board. Is there any?
I did call Troy forward, so maybe
Well, let him talk. Troy?
give him 2 seconds. He's good at that.
I'll make it brief. Yeah, there is a plan here, and a sinking fund would be ideal. However, don't forget that if you bought a building on Sherman Avenue and were doing improvements in excess of $15,000, there would be a way in which to get that work done. The other thing that we're looking at is the fact that once we get this major commercial area brought up to speed with the technology, these trees are 22 years young at this point, and if they haven't heaved the sidewalk, it's probable they won't do it again. If I had more money, I would create a sinking fund, but we've assigned, thanks to a former mayor and former council member that was here that helped us set up this sidewalk abatement program. We're doing over 7,000 feet a year, and if we had an emergency, we would do 6,995 feet and go do that tree well. So that would be my financial answer to you on this program.
Thanks, Troy.
Yeah, we do have a de facto sinking fund by the urban revenue funds in the plan to do the city so much every year. So,
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve as
Second.
presented by
Okay, the request for the city for
$70,000
$70,000
not to
payable,
exceed.
$35,000 per year for a period of 2 years to be targeted to the ADA corner improvements. Is that a good way to say it?
Very good.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Dave?
Just quickly, whereabouts in our budgets is going to come out of?
Probably most likely our special reserve account.
Okay.
just real briefly, Mr. Chairman, so this is done with the understanding it's based on what was memorialized here about preserving as many trees as possible and replacing others where it can be, and preserving the architectural integrity of the downtown. And Everyone understands that, as well as the city officials.
I think if I can say that's the sense of the board, and Tony will
Absolutely.
put that in the minutes in some
Thank you, Tony.
some degree.
So encapsulated, our participation is for the upgrades to the ADA compliant ramps at the intersections. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Those ramps were as ADA compliant as we could get in 1989.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, next item is an item I'm recused on, Riverstone West Family 3 Apartments, so I'm going to pass the baton to Mr. Papson.
Thank you,
Vice
Mr. Chair. Todd Prescott, you want to join us at the table or the podium, sir? Bring us up to speed.
Like red tape class.
Welcome, sir. Go ahead and bring us up to speed as to where you are with your project and how we may help.
I believe the last time that I was in front of this board, I was requested to go and get Parks Commission approval on our park design, and then also go through the city process and get city approval that they would accept all the improvements after they were done. So we were successful in both those avenues. Excuse me. I worked directly with Bill Greenwood for many, many hours to go over the park design. Based upon what the city would like to see at that particular location, the budget numbers that are on the table are just north of $300,000 at this point. What we're asking for is a $280,000 increment reimbursement over 12 years. So I think from an approval standpoint and from our original request and our original application, we are respectfully asking for $280,000 participation from LCDC. We went through the public workshop, which we posted publicly to go over if there was any public input. It was very low attendance, but we did get through that. We did go through the Parks Commission, we got their approval, and we did go through the city, and we got their approval. So I think from all the requests that we got from LCDC, I think we've fulfilled everything. At this point, our request is based strictly upon what we pay into of our improvement cost into the tax base. We're not here asking for a check from LCDC to make this happen. And from a risk standpoint for LCDC, this is a 12-year increment reimbursement. If for some reason our assessments do not come in where we think that they're going to come in, there's no liability on LCDC's part if that whole $280,000 is reimbursed. And I think that's the way, Tony, if you can confirm it, that's the way the agreement reads. Correct. So we are here tonight, and hopefully we fulfilled all the requests from LCDC. I think that this is a low risk on LCDC's part simply because they are not forwarding the funds to get this done, and it's from the funds that we pay in that we would be reimbursed. So we would respectfully ask if we could gain approval for our original request for $280,000 on a 12-year increment reimbursement. If you get any questions.
Any questions for Todd? I will vouch that came before Parks and Rec, and we thoroughly vetted the opportunity. That was on, I believe that was part of our regular broadcast meeting here a month or two ago.
Yeah,
yeah,
twice.
And the only issue that came out of that was initially a maintenance situation where I think Todd was willing to provide with his firm maintenance on the park. Bill Greenwood said, no, I'd rather maintain it ourselves. We're going by there every day. Let us keep a handle on that. Todd, would you consider warrantying the landscaping, the planting that you put in there? And he said he would. So that part of it seems to satisfy the Parks Department and the director. And so at this point, I think we're ready to move forward.
I'd make a motion for approval, subject to what you said about warranting the improvements.
Moved. I hear a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, discussion?
Just the same agreement as before with all the T's crossed and I's?
Same process, so you'll direct me to prepare, and working with legal counsel, an improvement reimbursement agreement. We'll make sure that all the improvements get put in per city code and are accepted by the city, and we'll do a cost validation analysis to validate that the actual cost occurred, and then that will wrap it up in a bow for you all to approve when that's all said and done.
That's what I said.
So Tony, just a point of clarification, because I'm new, I'm still trying to learn all of this. So the $280,000 would be their amount of increment that they would normally pay in, but they would just not pay that? Is that how that works?
No, the way it works is that, the developer will pay for all the public improvements up front.
Understood.
And on an annual basis, their project will pay taxes, and we'll get them a portion of those taxes that are paid to LCDC. And we will reimburse those funds to the developer on an annual basis based on a formula.
Right. So they're just keeping those. They're gonna pay for everything up front. They will just hold on to that portion that would normally come to LCDC.
No, they don't hold on to anything. So they pay for everything up front. It's money out of their pocket. And then their tenants in their project pay taxes to the county. So the county sends us the money, and then we reimburse the developer on an annual basis. And as Todd pointed out, and with all our projects, is that the fail-safe in these agreements is if the project does not generate enough increment to satisfy the debt. So if Todd's project does not generate $280,000 in reimbursement to his project by the year 2027, when the River District expires, then we have no further obligation to reimburse. The developer's on the hook. Right.
And we also keep a percentage of that income.
Right.
For our operating.
Yeah, there's an equation in the agreements where typically the board retains 25% on an annual basis to help run the business, along with an art reserve of 2%. So basically 73% of the annual revenues go to the developer.
Perfect. Thank you.
And one of the other things I'll add to the discussion of this, that Todd, one of the stops he had to make in his process was to engage the dog park people. So Mr. McDonald and his group were engaged in this process, and they did some peeking and tweaking as to the sizes of the dog areas, and so their input has been engaged in this plan.
And also, Mr. Greenwood pulled in someone with the master gardener background and actually to look at the xeriscape that we're going to do.
Yeah. So it's been well vetted. Any further discussion on the motion? Anybody need to have the motion restated by Tony? Okay, not appearing so. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Patson. Well done. Okay, so we're into our committee reports. First committee reports, of course, is finance, and Mr. Caldwell's not here today. So, Tony, does that mean you're going to take that up?
I will fill in Mr. Caldwell's stead. Caught up here. Does anybody need a set of the financials?
I'll take one.
Just one, two?
I can use one if you have it.
So regarding the financials for the month of November, starting off with the Lake District, the balance sheet, it was basically a fairly quiet month with both districts. The Lake District experienced a $59,887 decrease in cash assets from October month end. Also on the balance sheet under the assets, the Washington Trust Bond Reserve interest was realized of $138 on that reserve account. And you probably won't notice this, but the Finance Committee did, that there used to be a closing cost line item on our balance sheet on the Lake District. That value was $71,719 in October. And due to the fiscal year 13 audit, that line item on our balance sheet has been eliminated due to a change in the standards that we now are audited under. So those costs are no longer amortized. Switching to the liabilities and fund balance, the mortgage and notes payable line item increased by $1,326,945 over the October value. Reflects a monthly debt obligation payment of $22,515, a loan payoff of $50,540 associated with the closure of our loan on the 626 North Park Avenue property. And this was combined with a Washington Trust bond draw offset of $1.4 million. So that's how that math works. Turning to the P&L, the profit and loss statement for the Lake District. The Lake District received $17,659 in tax increment revenue from the county in November. The large payable you see there is the McEwen Park Line item payable of $1,388,540, which reflects a payment of the last CNI invoice, which was number 8. The repair and maintenance line item is a bit higher this month due to work at 515 Garden and 720 Young Avenue. Those two properties need a little TLC, so we are fixing up a few things on those properties. Switching over to the River District balance sheet. Once again, kind of a quiet month in the River District. The River District experienced a $3,912 decrease in cash assets from October month end, and all the other parameters pretty much stayed constant. And on the P&L for the River District received $4,192 in tax increment revenue from the county in November, and the expenses you see are pretty much just 50-50 cost share items for running the LCDC organization. So fairly quiet on the financial front for the month of November.
Questions of Tony?
Move to approve the financials?
Oh,
no, wait a minute, we got to do the other.
Do our payables.
With you here.
Jumping ahead.
That thought.
So for the payables, you'll have a copy of those. Start at the top. We have a invoice from Elam and Burke Law firm for $129.50. An invoice from a Holly Troxel Law firm for legal counsel of $252. Molitor & Associates Consulting for government relations of $2,069.27. Keith Erickson Consulting for communications, $1,400. Magnus & McHugh, the first invoice for the 2013 audit of $7,100. Then the next item is for Cannon Hill. These invoices pertain to the demolition of the 618, 620, and 622 North Park Avenue buildings and associated asbestos testing and abatement. Those invoices total $23,085. And the final three invoices are associated with the McEwen Park project. The first one is for ACI for the McEwen 2012 project. Totals $60,094.10. This is the final invoice for ACI. That project, the 2012 portion of the project is complete. The next value you see is for Contractors Northwest for the McEwen 2013 project, invoice number 9 for $803,317.96. And the final item you see there is for Team McEwen. This is invoice number 17 for Team McEwen, totaling $14,516.75, which is basically for project management. So all total for McEwen, those invoices add up to $877,928.81. And in total, the total payables are $911,964.58. Any questions on the payables?
Now I'll move to approve the financial statement and pay the bills.
Move to approve, move and second to approve the financials and the payables. Any discussions or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the next item I have is an update on the NIC Event Center. Just bring everybody up to speed and refresh everybody's memory. Back in July of 2013, the LCDC board supported the proposed NIC Center conceptual initiative that was presented by NIC in the, let me get the right motion here. Here we go. So back in July of 2013, the board authorized preliminary approval of an LCDC partnership funding in the amount of $10 million for the proposed NIC Event Center to be located within the LCDC's River District, based on 6 conditions. As you recall, the overture to the LCDC was a $15 million project, including both construction of the facility plus land acquisition. And as you recall, the 6 conditions of the board's preliminary or conditional approval of $10 million are the following. By the end of calendar year 2013, NIC leadership will make a formal partnership funding request of LCDC prior to any binding funding commitment by the agency. The second condition, LCDC will seek the concurrence of a third-party financial advisor that the LCDC River District has projected financial capability to adequately fund the proposed $10 million debt obligation. The third condition, the selected property parcel of the proposed event center needs to reside in its entirety within the LCDC River District. The fourth condition, NIC will need to have raised the proposed $5 million in fundraising and spend those dollars on the proposed event center project and land prior to the spending of any LCDC partnership funds. So as you recall, the entire project was $15 million. The condition was that they come up with the $5 million first. The fifth condition, the professional management of the event center needs to be given due consideration by NIC in consultation with the Community Advisory Board. And finally, the final condition is a revalidation of estimated construction costs for the event center needs to be completed by the end of this calendar year. So that hopefully brings everybody back up to speed on where the board left this in July. So NIC Trustee Chair Ken Howard and NIC President Joe Dunlap met earlier this month with the Finance Committee. During this visit, Mr. Howard and President Dunlap shared that the original NIC Event Center concept overture presented to the board a few months ago, back in July, is being modified. New circumstances have arisen involving both the proposed event center location and the proposed concept design, prompting NIC leadership to approach LCDC to seek more time to further analyze the components of this initiative. Both Mr. Howard and President Dunlap expressed continued commitment from NIC leadership regarding the Event Center initiative and are requesting that LCDC also stay committed to this initiative as NIC continues its due diligence. The Finance Committee recommends to the full board that LCDC extend its conditional commitment to the Event Center concept into 2014, allowing NIC leadership the necessary time to complete their due diligence efforts and reapproach the LCDC with a modified partnership funding request. So the recommendation is just to keep the current offer on the table, basically, until the NIC leadership team comes back with their modified overture. Mick, Commissioner Arman and Commissioner Patcher were in the meeting also, and if you have any other items to add that I might have missed during the conversation.
So in a nutshell, they just need a little more time. They're still vetting the project. The proposal, I think, is that we bump the current end of the calendar year of 2013, make that end of the 2014 fiscal year, which would be September 30th?
Yes.
Yes, September 30th, 2014.
One of the things in their discovery process is they came to the realization that the original proposed Riverstone location wasn't big enough. The parking burden would create too much on adjoining businesses, and so therefore they've pushed away from that. Because of that, now they're looking at property opportunities elsewhere. So that's what's causing the
nearby but elsewhere.
Yeah, nearby but elsewhere.
Still in the River District.
Still in the River District, yeah.
So both sites on the Riverstone, even the bigger site at Riverstone was not big enough?
That's correct.
Okay.
And they're meeting tonight, NIC's meeting tonight, almost as we speak, and they're doing a complete facilities review, which the event center will be one of those facilities that they're going to review. So I think they'll have a better understanding of their facility needs and facility opportunities after this evening.
And it is still likely that wherever it goes would require an amendment to the River District boundaries, right. And that's captured in our original motion. So the chair would entertain a motion that they, to authorize extension of our preliminary approval of partnership funding in the amount of $10 million for the proposed NIC Event Center to be located within the River District based upon those original conditions, and that they come back with a formal funding request within the fiscal 2014 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Brad?
Do they think they'll need most all that time to come back with something to us?
I don't think so. But I think it's wise of the board to give them as much time as they may need, but I think they'll be back sooner than later.
And then one other question. So we're simply extending our original request, and so everything in the minutes here that you read us is still the same. We're just extending the request. And the thing I would point to is the 5,000 seats and the 60,000 square feet of event space, as is in our original board meeting excerpt there. Okay.
And in all likelihood, that probably will be modified with a reapproach of the board. So we'll probably see that, a change in that design concept.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's in our proposal right now, and I think, just from my personal perspective, I think this is a great thing for the community, but it also needs to be something that serves the needs of the community at large, also when we're looking at this project as a whole. So I'll leave it at that right now.
Al?
I believe that we need to also make sure that we get updates, at least on a quarterly basis, or something to keep us abreast of it, because we're going to be planning for the out years of this organization again this year, sometime probably in the summer. So we need to make sure that this stays in front of us.
That was one of the things that Finance reviewed with them, was that, you know, the clock's ticking on our funding mechanism, the borrowing ability of this particular district. So, you know, pushing it out a year or two before we consummate any kind of a deal is not necessarily good for the long-term borrowing and or the other opportunities that may come along. So as we kind of slowly march up that incline towards the sunset of that district, we need to keep that in mind. The time is of the essence on our end, that, you know, longer isn't better as far as the opportunities that we may be able to respond to.
I do think that college administration's been good with checking in with Tony, making sure that, I know they didn't want to let this date go by without coming in and saying we need a little more time. So I think that's a point well stated, and I know that Tony will follow up on that.
Well, and we have
Your motion,
membership on their committee too, don't we?
Yeah,
That
Tony's on
so-
there,
So, yeah, we keep well
So
abreast.
and Mick as
I'm on there
well.
also.
So, yeah, so we've got some representation. We have some ears there and voices. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have for the finance.
Thank you, Tony. So that takes us to Housing Committee. Deanna, is there anything to report?
I don't think we have a thing.
I think you reported it last month.
I
Pretty
think
much
we
the same.
covered what we were going to cover last
Yeah.
month, so.
Okay, Parking Committee, and Commissioner Jordan is now on that Parking Committee.
I have just a brief report, Mr. Chairman. The new parking structure downtown next to the McEwen project, the parking will continue to be increased in there as the project moves along through the course of the winter and the spring. Just the speed depends on the construction and the weather and so forth. But they will gradually increase more parking area in there. And the other thing is that sometime in mid to late January, my name is scheduled to be on the City Council for appointment to the Parking Commission as your representative on LCDC. I'm not officially on the Parking Commission yet.
Excellent. All right. Communications Committee.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, I'll ask Keith Erickson to join us here. And in Keith's, I guess, best attempts to keep it at 5 minutes or less, brief update on what's been going on. He's
Running
got
a tight ship tonight, Keith.
got some numbers to share, and, you know, we'll gong you if you take longer than that. So welcome, Mr. Erickson.
I would admit I think that will be real quick, very brief, especially now. I just wanted to let the board and the public know, the board mostly knows that the 21st edition of the newsletter came out. Hopefully you all got it. Some great topics. We talked to the new council members, Kiki Miller and Amy Evans. So there's a little profile there you can look at. There's an update on McEwen. Mr. Jordan had mentioned the parking increasing. I'm not sure whether that's going to happen. There will be at least 180 spaces available through the winter as it is, and there is a new parking unmanned parking station now available for people. So there is an update on everything new and great with McEwen in that newsletter with a great aerial shot. If you tune into it, I mean, and Central Premix took it, you can really see it, and it's going to be historic when you look at when it's finished. So if for no other reason, I mean, check out the newsletter for that. A profile on Mayor Bloom, which she was poignant about, and it's a great Q&A with Mayor Bloom, and then some other issues as well. So I'll leave the newsletter at that, but just as a reminder, if for those who don't subscribe to the newsletter, if they go to lcdc.org, you go right to our website, and you pop on the subscribe to newsletter, and you're there, and it's just once a month. There's not a lot of junk from LCDC. Other issues, we've been doing public outreach through the media to try and broaden our approach. As you know, I've told you many times, through the Spokesman Review and the Coeur d'Alene Press on their websites, and they click on the ad. I won't belabor this issue, but since we ended that at the end of November at my suggestion, because where you went to on that link was to the webcam of McEwen. And since even though work will continue to a much lesser extent, there's not much to see. So my thought was that there's not a whole lot of reason to continue that through the winter. But with that, the final figures that we have after 20 months of doing that at a nominal fee, in my opinion, at $300 a month with the Spokesman Review, and after 7 months at the same fee with the Coeur d'Alene Press, we had people clicking on the ad and visiting our website, and therefore the webcam was 2,700 people that I think otherwise would not have come there. So they learned about the LCDC. They came to our website. I think it was a good broad outreach. In today's world, when you're competing with so many other mediums and websites and Facebook pages, I think it was a good effort, and I really think that we should explore it again in March, whether or not it's worth it. To me it was, but we'll see, what happens and how we proceed. And then speaking of that, and I'll end it with this. Like I said, when you hit on that ad on the Coeur d'Alene Press, or when you hit on the ad at the Spokesman Review, that took us to the webcam. And I met with the IT department at the city, and they tell me that the webcam hits we had, or viewers we had, that specifically that went to the webcam through LCDC, not from the city's website or anywhere else, was 1,053 viewers who watched it. Not a huge number, but it's over 1,000 viewers who went to see it, and they're seeing our site. So, step by step, I think we're broadening our outreach and approach. Was I under 5 minutes?
You got there. Any questions for Keith?
Excellent job you did.
Gabe will analyze the tile ads again in the spring as construction starts gearing back up again. So, thanks, Keith.
I think it's something to look at. Thanks a lot.
One other thing I want to add, there is a typo in the electronic newsletter. We put that in there on purpose to see if you guys can catch it, so you'll be quizzed on it next month.
I saw it.
Uh-oh, do I have to take responsibility for that? We'll talk later, Dave.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave, for that. Executive Director's report. Tony.
Just one item. I'd like to invite our governmental affairs person, Teresa Molitor, to join us.
Welcome,
Molitor
Teresa.
Associates. You just want to kind of give us an update on what's going on the Boise front.
Thank you, Board, and Tony, and Chairman, and Board members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and visit with you about the legislative session. I didn't hear a time limit, so I'll try to keep it under 30 minutes.
Assume there is one.
Just kidding. It'll just be a couple of minutes. I'll just give you a little overview of what I think we can expect this session generally, and then we can talk more specifically if you'd like. The budget is always the number one topic that people want to talk about. I've heard that the budget that the legislature will request will be about $2.8 billion. Agencies are asking for about in excess of $3 billion. So we're going to, again, have a little disconnect between what the agencies think they need and what the legislature has. The governor has proposed a budget that's about between 3 and 3.5% more than last year. And so he'll unveil that at his State of the Budget address. Governor Otter, unlike his predecessors, keeps his budget pretty close to the vest. With previous administrations, we'd have sometimes more information about what would be coming, but Governor Otter saves his unveiling for the State of the Budget address. So we'll have to wait for January 7th, which is the start of the session, to hear those specifics. I can tell you what I think we will hear in the budget. The three biggest parts of the budget, as you all know, are education, health and welfare, and the criminal justice system. Education, as many of you know, we had a governor's task force that met over the course of the last year after the defeat of Props 1, 2, and 3. They have 20 recommendations that were approved unanimously, except for a recommendation on Idaho core standards, which received one dissenting vote. And I'll talk about Common Core in just a second. But the recommendations from the task force are pretty wide-ranging. They involve quite a bit of additional spending to not only backfill budgets that have been cut in recent years, but also to try to create a career ladder salary schedule for teachers that would essentially cost about $253 million. So the governor has hinted that he supports the recommendations, but that he's not sure that kind of money will be forthcoming. But there's also recommendations in there for technology, which is interesting because that was part of a proposition last year that failed. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Common Core, I mentioned Idaho's adoption of the Common Core standards. Ours are called Idaho Core. They've received a lot of controversy in the interim, even though they were passed unanimously as a rule by both education committees 2 years ago. And so I'm not sure how this is going to play out. We have both education committee chairmen, including Senator Getty from this district, who have reiterated their support for the core standards. And so I can't predict that there will be a revisiting of that rule, but you may expect an attempt to try to reverse course on that. I don't think it'll be successful, but I will predict an attempt. On that same front, on health care, the other big part of the budget, I think we'll see an attempt to try to reverse what happened last session on the Idaho State Exchange. I don't think that will be successful. I don't see very many votes turning from last time. But that issue, as you all know, has been a very hot topic. In fact, in my experience doing this kind of work, I've been surprised at the extent to which that issue really dominated last session and continues to dominate kind of the factions, particularly in the new House and all the new members there, new speaker, et cetera. So, of course, the companion issue to the state health care exchange is Medicaid expansion. I'm hearing now that that is probably not going to move forward this session. You have some legislators that want to, if we're not going to do that, try to reform our CAT fund, which is our catastrophic fund that the counties administer care to indigent residents. So there's a lot of push-pull on health care right now. IACI has come out in favor of Medicaid expansion, along with some unlikely bedfellows like the United Vision for Idaho, and some of those groups are coming together on this. But I'm not sure it's going to be enough to convince the legislature to go that direction. Kind of on the health care front, but it might be more of a tax issue. I think that we'll see some activity on electronic cigarettes this session. The Attorney General's office has come out with some recommendations on taxing that product, and it's kind of a new frontier for Idaho and every other state. And so I think there will be some legislation attempting to ban the use of them in certain places, et cetera. There are probably going to be people from the vaping community in there with their own set of recommendations that are very unlike the ones that I just suggested. So there's just something to be looking for. And also on the tax front, I'm hearing that there is another move afoot to try to get a streamlined sales tax bill to pass the session, and that would be an internet sales tax, for those of you who aren't familiar with that. That has been attempted in the past. I've kind of watched that issue dot the tax committee over the last few years, and I'm not sure it's going to make it this session, but I think there's going to be an attempt. I just read about it. A few things happened on my trip up here today, so this political stuff happens pretty quickly. One of them is the governor has an economic development idea that he presented today in Boise, and I just made a note of it here. It would provide up to a 30% rebate on income and sales taxes paid by companies adding high-paying jobs. So, of course, we'll have a fight about what a high-paying job is, and whether that's the right direction to go to spur economic development. But as I was reading about it today, it looks like it's going to be the Boise Chamber's one of their #1 priorities is to try to help the governor with that. The governor has also suggested about a month ago that he thinks it might be time again to visit about transportation funding. If you recall, about 5 or 6 years ago, the governor had a variety of different ideas. All of them involved a fuel tax. None of them were approved by our House of Representatives. Of course, we have a different House now. Some say it's moved a little more to the middle. But even with that, I think the governor is starting to back away from any kind of a tax increase proposal for transportation unless it comes kind of from the bottom up and has more support. I think he was going to try to get someone to commission a poll for him to see if there would be public support for a tax increase. I think there are other ways to deal with transportation funding in addition to fuel tax increases, and there may be more of a combination proposal in the works. But again, I'm not feeling it this year. I'll end with just a reminder that this is an election year, and therefore the legislature typically likes to have a shorter session because they want to get home and get back to talking to their constituents. Many of you know we're going to have some changes even this interim. Representative Patterson has resigned today from his seat, District 15 in Boise. Senator Brandon Durst from District 18 resigned earlier this summer, and so we may have someone be appointed from the House. So, we always think we kind of have things set for a couple of years, and then we have some changes midterm, and this is no exception. A lot more names in the Secretary of State's race. I see Evan Frazier, former senator, has jumped into that, and former Senator Mitch Toryansky, who incidentally was defeated by Brandon Durst in his last election, has also decided to get into that crowded field. Former Speaker Lawrence Denny is there, and then the Ada County Elections Chief, Phil McGrain, has also announced his candidacy. We have a governor's primary and general election with Senator Russ Fulcher jumping into the primary, and A.J. Belukoff will be the likely Democrat candidate in the fall. So I'm hearing that the legislature wants to get out of Boise by mid-March. I usually add a couple of weeks to that at least. And so we may get out of here early. Specifically, we had some proposals last session relating to urban renewal. One of them passed, Representative Luke Malek's bill 137, that limited the ability of urban renewal agencies to enter private property. In fact, I think it eliminated it, to be specific. There may be some proposals this year that we're not familiar with. There probably will be some proposals that we are familiar with. So we'll kind of wait and see what comes our way. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Teresa. I have just one other topic. Any movement or any discussion about revisiting the personal property tax repeal?
Mr. Chairman, I haven't heard, even from IACI, which were the kind of holding the end of that, I haven't heard that they want to pursue that this session. The general feeling is that last session, that you heard it as well, 85% of businesses were happy with the result, and a few of them weren't. And so I don't think the issue is going to go away, but I haven't heard that it's going to dominate the discussion this session. One thing I failed to mention, I'll just add it real briefly. There have been a variety of interim committees that have met this session, more than I can remember in past interims. One of them has dealt with federal lands pretty extensively, and there may be some discussion this session about the recommendations from that committee as to what to do with our federal lands. Of course, many of you know that Utah made a move to try to recapture its ownership of its federal lands from the government, and there are many here in this state who feel that we should pursue that same path. Of course, I've heard some of that testimony, and everybody you can imagine has been in that interim committee on both sides. It's a very complicated issue, in my opinion, and it's not going to be easily solved. But there is a model out in Utah and down south. Southern Idaho people look to Utah a lot for guidance, and so this one may get some legs. There were also 2 interim committees that met on the criminal justice system. That's the third biggest part of the budget, corrections. One of them dealing specifically with the public defender system, which in recent years has had trouble having enough public defenders, frankly, to cover the caseloads. And then also more of a general, I think they called it a criminal justice reinvestment committee, which covered more general issues like our recidivism rate, parole and probation cases. I saw a story that was on the Spokesman Review, I think, about how Idaho has some of the highest incarceration rates and some of the lowest crime rates. We have the highest percentage, I think, of nonviolent criminals who are serving time. And so this committee heard a lot of, I think, very alarming testimony from people who don't live in the state but study the state. And I think it was a great wake-up call to many of them that we need to put forth a lot of different reforms to try to reverse, I think, some of our, I guess, tough on crime ideas in the past. So I think there will be a lot of activity in the Judiciary and Rules Committees this session.
Questions? Dave?
Teresa, thanks for coming up and visiting with us. Revenues are exceeding projections, I believe. How much for the year do they feel that the revenues are going to exceed their projections?
The last report I saw was $162 million ahead,
Okay.
but that report is sort of old, and so that's the one off the top of my head, but you're right, they are coming in a little ahead. When you look at, let's say it even comes in at $170 million out of a $2.8 billion budget, you know, there's some things they can do with that.
I was kind of wondering where the governor was getting his 3 or 3.5% from, and I would assume that part of it has to do with this optimism about the economy continuing to do well as it gears back up.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Other questions of Teresa? Tony?
Just briefly, local option sales tax?
Pardon me?
Local option sales tax, got a shot?
You know, the local option sales tax is, you know, it's like your old friend, you know. He's always there. He might be like the house guest that doesn't go away, I'm not sure. But there's always, it seems like every year, even back when I worked at IACI, the issue was prominent then. It continues to be an issue that particularly chambers are always interested in. I'm just not sure when that issue is ever going to be addressed to everyone's satisfaction. Maybe never, depending on who you talk to.
In our elections. All right, any other questions? Thanks, Teresa. Appreciate your work and your visiting with us.
Coming up.
Thanks, Teresa.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tony. So we have opportunity for commissioner comments, and I actually have a brief comment regarding the service of Deanna Goodlander, who's been board commissioner for for over 10 years. May continue to be a board commissioner. We just don't know. That's going to be a question for the new administration, but I wanted to take the opportunity to recognize and acknowledge your service over those many years, and thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a real privilege to serve with this board. We have new members, and some that have been here a while, along with me, and I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to know you all, and to work with you. This is a great board. I was thinking earlier of what we've accomplished, and we're getting a lot of kudos right now in the press and here and there, the mayor and Mike and I, and as to things that have been accomplished over the last, for me, 16 years. And I was thinking, how many of them would we have accomplished without LCDC? And quite frankly, I think some wouldn't have been accomplished. Some would have been accomplished, only not quite as well. So I think this board deserves huge kudos. Tony is a great leader in terms of keeping us on track, and I just want to thank you all for the privilege of being around you.
Feeling is very mutual.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Deanna. I can remember back in '97, I think that might have been your first year on council when you and Al sat up there and voted to create this entity. And
Took a lot of
I
flack.
think you guys had some vision. And I can remember meeting in the high school auditorium and the sound system being less than par there. But you persevered and forged ahead. And I think that under your leadership at that time, your fingerprints are all over this success that this entity has had, and I want to thank you for your vision and your leadership for that, and also the things that have transpired in our community since that time. Thank you.
Other commissioner comments? If there are none, then the opportunity for public comment. I don't see too many people left in the audience, so I guess we don't have any public comment. So I would then entertain a motion to move into executive session under subsection C of Idaho Code Section 67-2345 sub 1 to discuss acquiring an interest in real property not owned by a public agency.
I would so move.
Second.
Roll call.
Goodlander?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Hassel?
Yes.
Hatzer?
Aye.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Ruffle? Yes. Jordan?
Yes.
Armin?
Yes.
Okay, we are so convened.